seeking solutions to the illicit flow of money from Africa. At a conference in Abuja, speakers proffer solutions.
80 killings in Mozambique since October, all of them carried out by unknown assailants. Is it the work of armed Islamists, or could it be linked to the scramble for underground resources?
The changing face of innovation. We'll see how one teacher in Cameroon is training girls to shape the future of technology. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome to Africa 54. I'm Chamberlain Oso at Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Vincent Makori at Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm Vincent Makori at our global headquarters in Washington, D.C. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with a look at combating illicit financial flows from Africa. Chamberlain Oso in Lagos brings you that story.
Africa loses an estimated $50 billion annually through illicit financial flows, the bulk of which is said to be from West Africa. At a conference in Abuja, Nigeria's Foreign Minister Geoffrey Onyeama criticized what he described as an unnecessarily difficult process involved in repatriating some of such funds, while other speakers suggested solutions to the main problem of illegal flow of money from the continent and the need to stem it.
Injecting the revenue from our petroleum exports to the Ginga Dam.
2018 is Africa's anti-corruption year, as declared by the African Union, and representatives of several African countries have gathered here to discuss ways to combat illicit financial flows and assets recovery. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, as at February 2018, African countries lose at least $50 billion every year to illicit financial flows. Meanwhile, the Thabo Mbeki report on illicit financial flows notes that 70% of West Africa's losses comes from Nigeria.
Resources lost to illicit financial flows could otherwise have been used to drive Africa's development. Lost tax revenues and private investment would have helped to avoid austerity, provide jobs and infrastructure, and pay for vital social services, including education and health.
One ultimate goal of combating illicit financial flows is to help countries mobilize domestic resources to finance their development goals. We cannot hope to achieve the sustainable development goals without addressing the problem of illicit financial flows.
The challenge before these participants is how to repatriate the stolen funds stashed in foreign accounts. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs quickly reminds them of the strenuous process of recovering such assets.
We got some money back from Switzerland, but my God, when you look at the details, I was shocked and extremely angry at the process of recovery, because you see the percentage of the money that eventually came back to us that was paid out to all kinds of institutions in Switzerland, to lawyers, to this, to that, percentages of huge sums of money. And I said, but this is daylight robbery. This is daylight robbery, you know, that these countries are perpetrating.
The conference is expected to propose ways to improve sanctions and enforcement of mechanisms for perpetrators of illicit financial flows.
Repatriating illicit financial flows is one thing, and tracking the money stashed away in foreign banks is another. Experts and civil society continue to call for more efforts to stop illegal capital flights from Africa as it impedes the continent's development. Chinedu Bassi is the Program Officer, Tax Justice at Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC. Welcome to Africa 54.
Well, thank you very much.
We've been told that 70% of the funds that are illegally taken from the coffers of this country, 30% is through politicians, those who are called politically exposed persons, and 70% through the IFF. But the thing is, I mean, how did we get here? I understand, CISLAC, you've been keeping tabs on this. What did you find?
Yeah, thank you very much. The 70%, like you said, have different, all the evasive transactions that multinational companies and even high net worth individuals in Nigeria indulge in. Just of recent, there has been this argument between MTN and the federal government on whether they have paid the $2 billion taxes in 10 years. And someone will be asking the questions, where were the regulatory agencies for a whole lot of 10 years? And the report has shown that West Africa loses about 172 billion. And Nigeria's share of the money yearly is about 17.2 billion yearly. That's what the federal government loses to both tax incentives over invoicing from multinational companies, all the ways that they reduce their tax liabilities that is accrued to the federal government and not pay it and take it over to offshores, safe havens, and wherever you can call it.
You know, the government has been speaking about how they intend to tackle this. How easy or difficult do you think it's going to be if, for instance, we start here with those agencies of government?
Yeah, we have good policies. Let me start from there. The major challenge will be the responsible institutions and the personnel living up to their expectation and what they are supposed to do. We have the Financial Action Task Force. We have the SCUMO department in EFCC. And we believe that all these transactions doesn't go unnoticed by them. And if they don't get up to tackle these things when they start, it becomes a problem when it gets to a long run, like you will say, where were the regulatory agencies when a particular company were owing taxes till a time of 10 years, and you start talking about it now. So maybe on a personal idea, we'll ask, nobody prints money in their rooms. Every banknote transaction is either initiated in a bank or passed through a bank, and the banks have these records. There are policies that states that banks should report some transactions that is beyond a particular threshold. But how are these things being monitored and adhered to is another question.
You know, when you listen to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Nyama, while he was speaking up about the hurdles that were on their way, deliberately or so, from repatriating funds from Switzerland, are we likely to face that kind of challenge with other European or Western countries?
Of course, surprisingly, I would say yes, because when the monies are out there, it's not very easy them getting it out of their own economy, because that would definitely feel an impact of it living there. So and that's why we emphasize more on protecting or preventing these things from happening.
Are you optimistic that the preventive measures that are being put in place can, to a large extent, achieve considerable, reasonably results? Yes,
I do believe that. If the institutions stay, just put, for example, the most prominent around us here, the bank verification number, the BVN, is a very sure mechanism or strategy that we can use and put it side by side the tax identification numbers of these companies to make sure that the transactions that we see the companies pull through tallies with the amount of taxes that they are paying at the end of the day. So it's very easy.
All right then, Chinedu Basti, tax officer for CISLAC. Thank you for coming on Africa 54 today.
Thank you very much.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Well, coming up, a worldwide movement to engage young people in governance. A new survey sees more youth protesting. But are they ready to vote?